Hey guys, welcome to the Next Generation podcast, a space run by young people for young people, where we talk about stuff that actually matters to us, whether it's things we deal with every day or big issues shaping our world. Just a quick heads up, some of the things we will talk about today might be a bit sensitive or triggering. If anything makes you feel upset or worried, please don't keep it to yourself. Talk to a trusted adult. Thank you so much for being here, and let's get started. This is Next Generation Podcast.
My name is Lucas Dugan, here with John Tizzard, Police Commissioner for Bedfordshire. This is, what's the podcast called? This is New Generation Podcast. I'm going to basically just be interviewing John here about his role as Police Commissioner and asking him questions about what that means and what he sees to do in the future. So can you tell me a little bit about your job then? Like, what is your...
Well, first of all, can I say it's great to be with you, Lucas. I'm really looking forward to this conversation and this podcast. The Police and Crime Commissioner role came into existence in 2012 and it's going to go out of existence in 2028 because of government policy. The role really has several strands to it. The most important is to be the voice of the public into the police. I have no operational responsibility for policing. I can't tell the police what to do. But what I can do is attempt to ensure that all 730,000 people living in Bedfordshire's views and interests are taken into account by the police. To do that, I set the strategy for policing for a 4-year period, for the 4-year period of my election. I was elected in May 24, so 4 years from there. But I also regularly update that in terms of what the public are telling me, what's happening in the county in terms of crime, what's happening nationally, where new legislation is coming through. I also set the budget, so I'm responsible for setting the budget, and Bedfordshire Police will spend about £175 million in this coming financial year, paid by both local council taxpayers and central government. I also have the role of bringing together all the other criminal justice services, whether that's police, probation, courts, local authorities, health service and many others, prison service, to ensure we attempt to get a coordinated approach to criminal justice, because most importantly we're there to make sure victims get the service and they're entitled to.
Right, brilliant. Yeah, so I understand you ran with the Labour Party, right?
I'm a Labour Party politician.
Right,
I was elected as a Labour Party Police and Crime Commissioner.
Right, because I remember a few years ago my nan was actually telling me about, I think it must have been, because she was saying how brilliant your campaign was compared to the Conservatives one trying to be elected. I forgot who it was. Anyway, yeah. She was just saying that it must have been, how long ago were you elected?
I was elected in May 2024, so
right, yeah,
about 3 years ago. It's great of you to say it was a good campaign. I measure the success of a campaign. Do you win it or not? I won it, so that must be good.
I do remember my nan telling me specifically about this, which was quite interesting seeing that and then remembering that a few years later, and now I'm talking to you here. So
that's great.
Just shows, you must have ran a good campaign if she mentioned that to me.
That's very good to hear, and give my regards to your nan.
Yeah.
But I think what really is important, although I'm elected on a party ticket, and every police and crime commissioner in England and Wales are either Conservative, Labour, more Labour than there are Conservatives currently, and one Plaid Cymru commissioner in Wales. But in many ways, I work cross parties. I work with all 7 MPs of different political persuasions in the county. I work with 3 local authorities that have very different political allegiances. So it's a political role, and I think one of the things I draw on my values that are rooted in my party politics, but at the same time, it's a role that, and clearly the police have to be absolutely clear of politics.
Yeah, of course. I mean, the police were set up sort of as a way to keep order without using the army, because it could be controlled by the government.
I mean, Robert Peel, then a Tory MP, Prime Minister, before they had the Conservative Party, they called them Tories, then they call them Tories again today. When he set up policing in the early 19th century, it was very much about the police are citizens, and the citizens police are policing by consensus. And I really, really important point you made. I can't, as a politician, tell the Chief Constable what to do. The Home Secretary, as a politician, can't tell the police what to do operationally. We have that independence, and the police must make operational judgments and be accountable for those decisions, but not under political direction. And we see in other countries, just look at the immigration police service in the States. They have been under political control.
Or like the North Korean police.
But that would be
a good example.
Or a bad example.
So, what brings you to like Kempston Youth Club when it comes? Like, do you like talking to youth voices?
I mean, if I'm going to represent the people of Bedfordshire, I want to represent all the people of Bedfordshire, irrespective of age, irrespective of ethnicity, gender, or where they live. And it's very easy in the kind of job I have to hear those who have the loudest voices, those who may have the sharpest elbows,
online
and whatever. But I really really like hearing from young people. So I'm looking forward to meeting other people at the youth club after this interview. But also, I'm particularly pleased to be here because through some grant funding that I have responsibility for, we have funded a basketball program here at this Kempston Youth Club, and now we're funding this podcast program.
Brilliant.
And why do we do that? We don't, we do it because you're lovely people, of course, but actually we do it because it's really important that young people have the facility to make their own decisions and be empowered, but to do so in a way that takes them away from any risk of falling into criminality, antisocial behaviour, and similar. When I was, I was on the county council for many years, say 30 years ago, we had youth clubs, there'd probably be more than one in Kempston. They were right across, and there were a lot of services. They're not there now. Then people say, why do young people go on the streets? Why do they, move to do things which are not in the interests of the community or themselves? So I think that's really important, that we support programs like the ones at this youth club. And it's very clear, talking to the staff here and to the young people, that there's a real commitment to do things that are in the interest of the community.
So leading on from that, do you see any patterns in leading causes of youth antisocial behaviour?
Well, I mean, antisocial behaviour is not simply down to young people. Just as knife crime, which we may want to talk about, is not only about young people. I get quite cross when I hear, and I challenge people who always say, a lot of antisocial behaviour, it's those young people on the playing field, or those young people in the shopping centre. It may well be, but there will be people of my age and in between on the streets causing that problem as well. Antisocial behaviour, I'm sure sociologists and criminologists who have looked at this, and we could go into some great theoretical thing, but it can partly be that people have nothing else to do. they haven't thought of doing something else, don't have the confidence to do other things. It can also be that they get caught up with others and peer pressure, leads to that kind of activity too. Yeah, and I'm not making an excuse for antisocial behaviour. It's a really big issue. And antisocial behaviour, it's one of those crimes which can be regarded as, I hate the term low level because any crime's a crime, but it may be just causing noise in the street or whatever, but I have seen and experienced and met victims of antisocial behaviour that has really traumatised them, almost terrorised them with a small t, because they've been scared to go out of their houses or go into the town or whatever.
I mean, as a sort of young person myself, I've had the fortune to stay out of crime, stay out of those sort of circles. I basically know nobody that would be considered sort of a delinquent or anything. But it is a definite problem, and I would say it seems to a lot of people that it is increasing. Would you say that's the case?
I mentioned Peel. I could also report another Tory Prime Minister, Disraeli, who says, lies, damn lies, and statistics. And I can tell you that the statistics are saying antisocial behaviour in Bedford in the last year has gone down by 20%. But if you or your neighbours feel antisocial behaviour has gone up or it's there still, that 20% figure means absolutely nothing. So it's still too high, and we need to do a lot more to bring it down. And part of that's about having diversionary opportunities for people so they don't commit it. It's partly about enforcement, either by the police or by the local authority teams. But I think above all, it's about all of us just stopping and taking responsibility, because we live in the towns and the communities and the neighbourhoods where there's antisocial behaviour. So we mustn't do it, but we must also call out people who do.
Of course, yeah. So, as Police and Crime Commissioner, what are your main priorities for the 2 years left of your tenure then?
Well, the first is prevention. If we can prevent crime, and this is partly what we've been talking about, partly working with youth clubs and others, is part of that prevention. There's a lot more to it. If we can prevent crime, it means someone's not going to be a victim of that crime. Someone's not going to get enticed into being a criminal. And it saves the public purse a lot of money. And we're all better off as a society. So prevention. And that's prevention of serious crime, because a lot of crime is drug related. And there we have to stop both the supply and the demand for drugs. That's a relationship. Antisocial behaviour, making sure people protect their property well, whether they're shopkeepers or householders. So prevention's the first. The second is to ensure victims are treated well and get their full entitlements. And that's not just from the police, that will be from the Crown Prosecution Service, court system. The backlog in the courts is enormous. So somebody who may have been a victim of a very serious sexual case or rape could be waiting 18 months, 2 years for her, it's likely to be her in that case, her case to get to court. That can't be right. So putting victims at the heart of the system. And then ensuring we have an effective and efficient police service, which I technically in the law hold the Chief Constable to account for delivering. But for me, that's getting a good inspection report from His Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, becoming inspectors in a few months' time, a bit like an Ofsted in a school. But it's more than that. It's actually the public having trust and confidence in policing.
Of course.
And as recruiting, being an employee of choice, and I think you may have an interest in the future of being a police officer, and a police service that looks like the county. We're a very diverse county. We're not as diverse in the police service as we might be. So a whole factor's there. And then ensuring women and children are protected, because the biggest volume crime at the moment is domestic abuse. Mainly women are the victims, not exclusively. Sometimes it can be a sibling to sibling, but it's mainly women. So how do we reduce that? And we're obviously, the government's committed to halving that by 2035. We want to play our role in that. And then tackling serious crime, because Bedfordshire has a disproportionate amount of serious crime. So we have more serious crime than many of our, all our neighbouring counties. Whether that's gun crime, drug crime, modern day slavery, trafficking,
of course,
and knife crime, which I referred to earlier.
So, leading on from that, what are statistically, what crimes are increasing at the moment?
Cybercrime. So over 50% of crime will have a cyber element to it. Domestic abuse and domestic violence is going up at the moment. That in part may be a good thing. Not that it's going up, but if the victims have the confidence to report it, and be discovered and be reported. But that's going up, and that's something that is a really awful crime and it has to be dealt with. We're seeing, drug crime is always there, not necessarily going up and down. Retail shoplifting going up at the moment, but the police are solving more cases, and so that's good. So it really is sort of, different crimes will be moving at different times in different places. Yeah,
of course. So I've heard people saying before, family, friends, or that the issue is people will get caught doing a crime, but they won't be punished severely enough to deter them from committing again. What do you think about
I mean, that's outside my responsibility. Yeah. That's a matter for courts and legislation. However, I don't think necessarily punitive sentences are necessarily always the answer. If we can rehabilitate, that's really important. A lot of crimes, people will be diverted out of the criminal justice system, and that's a lot better. They get proper counselling and survive. Maybe their crimes are related to a drug or an alcohol problem, so let's treat that. They may have a mental health problem. So I think we've got to do a lot more of that sort of intervention and preventive work. The governments are introducing new legislation to reduce the number of short-term prison sentences. We've had too many people who go to prison, maybe for only a matter of weeks or months. And that really is not good, because they come out of prison, they've probably lost their job, they may well have lost their family connection and accommodation, but they won't have been in prison long enough for anything to be done to rehabilitate them or to get treatment on, if they've got drug or alcohol problems.
Yeah.
And then we wonder why there's such a high level of repeat crime of people coming, almost a revolving door, out of prison and then back in again. So the whole system needs that radical change.
And I understand there's a lot of networks within prisons that get formed where people smuggle things in.
I mean, prison is a breeding ground, a breeding chamber for crime.
Of course.
And that's the gate, and partly that's because the prisons are so overcrowded, as we know, and understaffed and under-resourced, and have been for some time. But that's not the only reason. I mean, you're right. And there are people in prison who who organise and run crime that's taking place outside the prison.
Yeah, I've heard of this. A lot of mafia stories have somebody going to prison but continuing to run the operation.
And not just mafia. I mean, there may be mafia. Hopefully, they're mafia in Bedfordshire, but organised crime gangs. And the ability to, the prisons leak in terms of phones going in, drugs going in, weapons going in. And we've seen some pretty nasty incidents. That's luckily not here recently, but in other parts of the country.
Of course. So, to combat sort of juvenile, as we mentioned earlier, juvenile antisocial behaviour, what are the main things that could be done to do this, other than on a systemic level? This time,
I think we've talked about good youth club provisions, such as the ones we're here in Kempston tonight. Programs in schools, but I don't want to sit here and say it's all down to the schools and the teachers got to do it all. We've also got responsibility. I think we have to do more early intervention. We need more parental support.
Of course.
And sometimes we've run some really interesting programs called Not My Child in Bedfordshire, where we've been talking to parents about what they should be looking for if their child's involved in county lines. And county lines is a really serious issue where effectively young people are
Smuggling drugs.
but they're actually being controlled by some really nasty people to do that with threats to them and their families.
Yeah.
But parents may not know that. They may not even know their child's got a knife.
No.
So actually, how do you? And they're, otherwise very respectable, very good, parents. So how do we support them to be best parents? But how do we also identify some of the earlier signs? We know there's a correlation between school exclusion and crime. Some 60% of people in prison would have been excluded from school, either permanently or for long periods in their school. Now, so we can tell schools not to exclude, and we should be, I think you can have more in-school exclusion. But at the same time, how we identify these young people who might be likely to be in that bracket. We know, again, I talked about domestic abuse.
Yeah.
Young people who are victims, not being abused directly, but they've been traumatized by what they've seen in the family home.
Yeah.
Not all of them. Some will go on to do very successful things, but some will go, that's the kind of thing that can, and then making young people alert. I talk county lines. They got some 70 operating in Bedfordshire as we sit here now, and Bedfordshire exports county lines, not just imports them. And we're one of the few places outside London, Manchester, Liverpool, Birmingham that actually export, which is a bad thing. So and they're active in rural areas of county, is helping people to be alert to not to fall into that. And again, easy to sit here and say that, but those are the kind of programs we have to take.
Okay. So, someone such as myself that wants to be a police officer in the future, what are the sort of steps that I should take towards that? Or
I'm very pleased that you are considering it, because policing is a very good career and a great profession, and you can do so much, and there's so many different aspects of policing. You can join the police in several ways. You can join come in as a new recruit. You can come in on a police apprentice scheme. You can come in on a police degree scheme, and increasingly that's the route in. And for very senior roles, you at some stage have to have a degree or equivalent. You can be a cadet, so you can volunteer as a police officer. That's open at the moment to you or anyone else. I think it's being very clear about what your motivation for wanting to be a police officer is. It's not necessarily, wanting to be running around with a gun if you want to be in armed policing, or driving a car very fast on blue light. I'm sure there are some people who want to go to police. It's very much about being public service and having the right motivation. And police recruitment is a lot better today than it was a number of years ago. So it's a lot more, effective assessment. But I don't want that to be a barrier to you. I mean, really do come. Happy to arrange for you to meet some officers and the recruitment team.
We're learning in history at the moment. So my GCSE, one of my GCSEs is history. We're learning about the Whitechapel Police and the H Division, and a lot of the sort of drunkenness and disorder that they would sort of get done for. A lot of the officers, they didn't have a good vetting process. This was back in the 1800s, so
I think we're better in the 21st century, but also, though the police professional standards are very high too, and we would expect all officers to meet very high standards, and anyone who doesn't is out the door very quickly.
So what are the main standards and the sort of values that you should hold as a police officer?
Well, I think my personal view, and I'm sure there are different views, and there's no sort of official line, but my personal view, I think you need to have a commitment to public service. wanting to serve your community or communities, to be absolutely non-prejudiced about any part of society, being inquisitive, wanting to solve problems, wanting to be part of a team, because policing is very much a team profession, and I think wanting to recognise that overriding public service may mean at times that you will be, well, potentially at risk, but certainly inconvenienced, and families and others may be, because it's not a 9-to-5 job, but it's a job well supported. And again, I'm sure if we were having this conversation 10, 15, 20 years ago, or even actually less, there wouldn't have been the level of support, welfare, professional development there is currently in policing.
Yeah. I understand a lot of police see some stuff on the job that might be sort of traumatic and upsetting. So if this is there sort of safeguards for when this happens,
well, I mean,
you can go on maybe if you go on like the leave for a few months, or
well, I mean, one of the things about policing is you don't necessarily know when you start your shift what you might be going to experience. You might get called to a scene, you might knock down go through a door and find bodies, or horrible things, but you may find other things. We have some police officers and police staff, because police staff as well as police officers is a good career too, and it's a very important part. Not don't carry a warrant card, who literally spend hours and days looking at horrible things online, because and again that can be very dramatic and traumatic, and if you're working in child protection, it can be as well. So you're absolutely right. But at the same time, a lot of what you'll do as a police officer, people will be thanking you for doing it, and it'll be a warm reception.
So you've got the support of the public behind you.
Yeah, and you've got, to ask your point, there's very good welfare systems and support.
So I understand cybercrime is becoming a sort of increasing issue in I suppose Bedfordshire, but in the United Kingdom, the
Western world, I would suggest, and a lot of it is coming from the non-Western world, and some of that will be preying on people to effectively defraud them. Some will be some of this horrible pornography, paedophilia, and similar things online. But a lot of, when I said over 50% of crime will be cyber related, it will be that actually, mobile devices and other tech are in the process. And, criminals can be, one of the things, criminals can be ahead of the game in terms of using technology. I mean, Bedfordshire is probably leading the force in the country for using AI to enable and support policing. We've got something like 35 applications currently. But that in itself is not simply about, attacking cybercrime. That's attacking other things too, and I'm happy to talk about that. But one of the things we must do is to make sure that young people, and indeed not so young people, because many of the victims are not young, have really good education on online safety, what not to click on, see, what not to open, not what to respond to,
dangerous links and the like. Do you get a lot of, I suppose this would come under terrorism, wouldn't it? Do you get a lot of sort of dangerous groups recruiting online? That is.
Well, I mean, that you do, and some of that will be terrorists, and some will be organised crime.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of organised crime is international, and cyber, technology enables that to happen.
Undersea cables.
Yeah, but
Like.
what was that? That may be taken it in a different place, but and terrorism, which obviously is a form of crime, and the police have a responsibility for dealing with that too. And of course, again, there'd be a lot of online and black web and so on involved in all that, and the police have to be ahead. Again, looking for Korean policing, the police are going to need to have detectives and experts in technology, as much as they have in other forms of policing.
I feel like I need to get on that, learning how to use technology, because I'm not the best. Obviously, we've established what it takes to become a police officer, and all the public relation that you'll need to have as an officer. But I understand there's a sort of growing level of distrust towards the police from the general public,
but I commissioned with the Chief Constable an opinion polling in Bedfordshire in October of last year. And we, More in Common, who are one of the major national polling companies, undertook that. 62% of the population of Bedfordshire from the age of 18 upwards, didn't talk to anyone under 18, said they had trust in the police. That means 40% don't. So if I was writing the headlines of the newspaper, it might, that's about on par with the national.
Yeah.
The group that had the highest trust were under 25s from minority communities, interestingly.
Really?
And the group that had the least trust were males over 55 living in rural areas.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, that was a bit of a, that was not what I was expecting to see. So I think trust in policing is not, it has gone down. It needs to grow. We need to improve that trust.
Yeah.
But we improve that trust by being more effective at policing, having policing be much more visible, police officers and police staff, engaging with victims, engaging with the public, solving their problems and keeping them informed and feel as a partnership way of working. I think that, we can have, you can't have a sort of PR campaign to get people to trust the police.
No.
You've got to do
it.
It's got to be, because what people want is, There's the same poll showed, some people don't feel safe in town centres, so you have to make sure we've got, all the both policing and local authority, CCTV and other measures in place to make them feel safer. That's how you improve confidence.
You mentioned the statistic of rural, I think it was older rural white men compared to sort of young minorities in say city centres.
Well, I mean, they
major metropolitan areas.
Well, no, I mean, we're talking about Bedfordshire here, so that will be in Luton and Bedford and other towns.
Because you wouldn't go to say Cranfield and see as many minorities as you would in like Bedfordshire centre.
No.
Anyway, so what I was going to say is, what do you think causes the distrust among older?
Well, I mean, I think it's
men?
probably a variety of things, and some of it will be political, if I dare say, because we hear all this stuff. The police are woke. The police only look after the Asian community or whatever. People may say Bedford the rural area. Sorry,
the Rotherham Grimland scandal.
But also, there's can be a view all the policing goes to one part of the county and not to another, and we don't see police officers. But you may not see as many police officers because where you live, fortunately, hasn't got the same level of crime. Police go where
has a major airport there.
But Luton's got a major airport, and Luton, there is more crime in Luton than anywhere else in the county, but it's not that far behind Bedford. Bedford's not that far behind, actually. And the airport will generate crime. I talked about organised crime. Lots of link to the Balkans, and there are a lot of flights in Luton Airport to the Balkans. And any airport will. I mean, the airport puts demands on the police, but it puts very little financial demand, because we have an agreement with the airport that we get funding per number of passengers, so that pays for policing. And then the counter-terrorism and border policing is always funded by the Home Office.
Right.
The counter-terrorism officers are probably Bedfordshire officers. But anything like that, I mean, one of the things we're planning for now is the, Universal Studios about to come to Bedfordshire, Borough. Great news economically. I'm all in support of it. But, there are going to be thousands and thousands of people coming through Bedfordshire.
Vehicle traffic
In the construction period, because the construction will start before the road system's in place. That's not very helpful.
We've got road work down the end of my roads.
But so there will be, that puts additional demand on policing, and I'm talking to the government about how to having more money for. We're going to have a new town at Thamesford, not at the other end of the 421, and all that puts additional pressure on policing.
Yeah. So would you say a lot of pressures are increasing when it comes
to... I mean, there's a direct relationship. If you have more people, you're going to need more policing, whether that's more traffic policing or more dealing with a whole variety of crimes. And the government element of the funding reflects population, but in a sort of 10-year lag. It doesn't immediately reflect. So... But also we'll need other facilities. We've got 2 police stations in Bedfordshire. If Bedfordshire is going to grow a lot, we need a 3rd facility, for example. I'm not saying we do, but those are the kind of questions I'm constantly at the chiefing level asking and talking to the police about.
So for a lot of young people and their parents, the main concern is knife crime and how sort of dangerous weapons are going to be kept out of the hands of their children or aren't going to be turned on their children. So how is Bedfordshire Police dealing with that?
Well, Bedfordshire Police can do so much, but it requires local authorities, schools, youth clubs, a whole variety, all of us in the community to tackle this too. We need to educate young people. Statistically, if you carry a knife, you're more likely to be stabbed than if you don't. And if you get caught with that knife because you've carried it for that intent, you're almost certainly going to get a custodial sentence, whatever your age. You may not be prison if you're under that age, but you're going to get, and that's your life wrecked and your family's wrecked, and let alone anyone you might have attacked. But so we've got to do a lot more about that. I think the government have got to do a lot more to stop the sale of weapons, and they've done some, and online. In fact, you can go online and sort of order a weapon which
anything can be used as a weapon.
But anything also can be used as a weapon. And I was saying something on television last night. Why do we all have pointed knives in the kitchen? Because actually a rounding knife can do what you need to do in the kitchen. I hadn't thought about that, and my kitchen's full of pointed knives, and I guess yours is, and yours is. So there are those things we have to do, and we have to, as I said earlier, help parents identify where their child may have a knife, because they may not bring it home, they may conceal it somewhere else. The other is, but as I said earlier, and I want to repeat, knife crime is not simply an issue for young people. Young people get drawn into knife crime. We've had some pretty horrible murders and very serious attacks on people in the last few years in Bedfordshire, which have been conducted by middle-aged people, not just young people.
Yeah. I understand that knife crime is sort of the buzzword. It really encompasses just organised crime, or not even organised, just gang violence.
Well, it can be gang related, and it can be young people. We had a very tragic murder in Bedford town centre last year at the bus station. That was knife. And knives were involved in that. So people are right to be worried. But what we have to do, as I say, is to educate and that's easy to say. And a lot of schools run programs. I mean, within my office, as the Violence Exploitation Prevention Partnership brings together a whole range of, they run programs in schools. Schools run programs, youth clubs run programs, police go to schools as well. We've got a really good education team that go into schools. So there's a lot of work being done. But as you mentioned about organised crime, often life crime won't be about organised crime, but people who get trapped into organised crime may get trapped into easy lives as well. There isn't racial profiling. There is criminal profiling, which is not racially based.
I agree with that, actually. Yeah.
It's not driven by race, yeah.
People claim that it will be racial. I think some places do have racial profiling. You mentioned immigration control enforcement in the United States.
But I mean, I think sometimes part of the problem in policing, and it will be the same in teaching or medicine or wherever it is, professions, you see something horrible in the States or in France or in anywhere else, and you just assume it's all the same. Or, Bedfordshire Police has, I think, very high standards, but we saw that awful stuff at Charing Cross Police Station, the Met, a few weeks ago, and people think that all the police must be like that. That's the problem.
Yeah, and people kind of, I think you could get an officer that is racially discriminatory, but maybe he's seen a disproportionate amount of crime committed by certain groups.
I think you need to be careful if you're going to care.
No, I'm just saying.
All I would say in response to
because also you have to bear in mind you're both white men.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful what you say.
Yeah. What I would say though is every officer performance is assessed. Don't forget they also wear video cameras with recording. Yeah. So if an officer there is disproportionality. Stop and search. There are more black people stopped. Not as bad in Bedfordshire as it is in some other areas. But any officer who is disproportionately will be pulled out or doing anything else. So I think the police could be better. I don't think there are aspects of policing where there is institutional racism. It's been identified in some forces. I'm confident that's not the case in Bedfordshire, but we have to do better.
Yeah, I mean,
and it goes back to my point about recruitment. I would like to see a police force that looked more like the population it's serving.
Of course, and as I think you mentioned earlier, it can't be institutionally racist when there's all these accusations of wokeness.
But there's a lot of false stuff around, some false information too. And I think, policing is very much under the public spotlight. Yeah. Because although, officers will wear video cameras when they do they should always be on. But they'll be public with these, with their mobile phones filming them everything they're doing, so they have to be very careful.
I've had kind of arguments with my stepdad about this. He watched a lot of videos where people go up and they kind of interfere with what police are doing. Just gonna say, body cameras have got to be one of the best innovations in the last 100 years when it comes to policing, because that is stuff.
I think it's done good for public trust. It's done helpful for professional standards and managing. I think we're going to see a lot more technology applied in policing, but that's got to be ethically applied.
So thank you very much for joining us here at Kempston Youth Club. Don't you say signing off? Right. Thank you very much for joining us here at Kempston Youth Club. I've enjoyed this conversation quite a lot, and I appreciate the advice. I appreciate the insights, and so wish you the best.
Can I say thank you, Lucas, for a really interesting conversation over the last 40 minutes or so, and for your thoughtful questions. And I'm really pleased to be here at Kempston Youth Club.
This is Next Generation Podcast, a sporting aid project